About 2 weeks ago, while I was randomly browsing my YouTube homepage for something to watch while having dinner, I stumbled across a release trailer for a game called Skin Deep. In less than 10 seconds, I knew that I would absolutely fall in love with it. In Skin Deep, you play as Nina Pasadena, a MeowCorp insurance agent charged with rescuing her spaceship's crew from ongoing space pirate hostage situations. Yes, the hostages are cats kept in little cages, but we don't have to acknowledge that just for now, whatever. You're kept frozen for however many weeks until pirates board the ship, and you are automatically released to save the day. You are literally the contingency plan. The only issue is you're not playing a fast-paced boomer shooter, you're playing an immersive sim, so you get to start the mission with no guns, no defense, and no shoes. You are completely left to your own devices on this one, and devices aren't something you're gonna run out of anytime soon. This is the worst segue of all time. By that, I mean that this game feels like it has a trillion different items and mechanics for the sole purpose of murdering space pirates. You can throw metal pipes at their heads, you can make them explode,
You can send them to space.
you can make them sneeze, then hop on their back and ram their heads into the wall. Or you can just find a hidden gun somewhere and shoot them point blank if you really want to be that guy. Point is, this game has a ridiculous amount of really interesting mechanics that will let a resourceful player basically turn the level into a big sandbox of endless torture. Although it's really not as complicated to grasp as most other immersive sims, compared to a game like the System Shock remake, you won't find yourself running from corridor to corridor, Resident Eviling your way through enemies while struggling to figure out where you actually need to go to complete the current objective, because that info is given to you in an audio log you don't remember because the last time you played was 2 days ago and now you're back in the medbay for some reason. As much as I adore System Shock and other games like it, sims just tend to get overwhelming after a bit. But Skin Deep doesn't suffer from that problem because it's a level-based game, which isn't unique by any means. There has been tons of level-based sim experiences already, but Skin Deep just perfects it with its level design, mechanics, and simple objectives. The game manages to keep this completely streamlined feeling of progress throughout every level. When you start a mission, the pirates will have locked all the doors, the vents, trash chutes, and airlocks. But as you make your way around the ship, pickpocketing and taking down enemies one at a time, you'll find more ways to unlock each part of the ship, slowly taking back control over the entire vessel. Going from slowly crawling your way around, stealing keys and wall keys off enemies' backs, and eventually disabling the cameras, getting rid of everyone, and just getting to walk around like you own the place is a really addicting feeling, and I think it's at the very core of why I love this game so much. You're forced to get pretty creative with how you're going to take over the ship. You could just make a bunch of noise and throw like 10 soda cans at a guy's face, but he's going to sound the alarm, so unless he's carrying a walkie, you're gonna have to find another way to turn it off. Maybe instead, you could bait them in front of a docking station with an item, then depressurize the door so they go flying out into outer space, then retrieve all their loot in a lost and found machine. You also have to take their skull savers into account. Skull savers are basically the body mechanic of this game. In most stealth-oriented games like this, when you take down an enemy, you'll usually also have to hide their body, otherwise another enemy might find it on their patrol route and sound some kind of alarm that will make everything a lot harder. However, in this game, you have to grab their skull saver, which is a sort of really cool and really silly anti-death technology that just keeps your head alive. And you have to throw it away far into the endless void of space where none of these pirates will ever be rescued forever. If you leave a skull saver out on the ship for too long though, it'll slowly make its way to a respawn plate and instantly be back to full health like nothing ever happened. Oddly enough though, these guys don't seem to care when they see their coworkers' decapitated heads flying by, and the respawned pirates also seem to forget everything that just happened to them, as they simply go back to what they were doing a minute ago without even alerting the crew. I guess the waste of items or the destruction of bashable areas in the ship is enough of a punishment to not warrant having to deal with an extra alert phase, but still, I wish a pirate respawning resulted in a bit more than having wasted some time. Still, it makes for a pretty cool gameplay loop that turns every encounter into a little first-person puzzle where you slowly figure out your preferred way of dealing with each pirate based on their gear, location, and the tools at your disposal. Skipping past all these other very mechanical bits of the game, I'd like to bring up what may be my favorite thing that also really solidifies it as an immersive sim. the notes. All throughout each level, you can find these little sticky notes with messages written on them, either by the ship's crew or the pirates. These notes contain bits of information about the location of the cat's keys, passwords, neat ways to kill pirates, or hidden loot stashes, and sometimes they're just there to tell you that the crew had the genius idea of installing a basketball hoop right next to the least resistant glass windows in the world. This kind of stuff is exactly what I think gives the game such a consistent sense of immersion throughout the whole game. As you try to find the best way to find passwords to unlock more of the ship, you'll slowly piece together what the crew was up to before the space pirates took over, and learn more of how each part of the ship actually works. It doesn't have to be very deep either. In one of my favorite levels,
The herring.
paying close attention to the right notes can actually make your run 100 times easier. In it, you can actually read about how the pirates have had their eyes on this ship for a while, and had been smuggling guns on board for weeks, only for one of the crewmates to find a pistol poorly stashed in a book. This crewmate then decided to hide it away in the cafeteria behind a loose panel. And with that information, you can now go back to the cafeteria and get yourself a shiny new silenced pistol with one bullet that can one-shot any enemy. If you keep reading notes, eventually you'll find a note from the pirates confused because they can't find any of the guns they'd been smuggling all this time, and I think it's pretty funny. While it's not a revolutionary mechanic for an immersive sim, this note system successfully rewards the player for staying engaged with the world building without slowing down the gameplay, at least on a first playthrough. Now I'm just flying by all the notes like I'm clairvoyant or something. I think this little method of story building works especially well with this game because of the player's role in all of this. You want to be as efficient, stealthy, or stylish as possible while taking down the pirates and rescuing the crew, so you will naturally be guided to gather as much intel in the situation as possible. It especially feels very fluid and natural because of the zoom feature, which allows you to zoom in on whatever is in your line of sight and read from long distances. You can of course use it on notes, but also warning labels, instruction notices, and the space pirates to see what their gear is. That's not all that Skin Deep has to offer narratively though. Besides the main plot of the game, which is pretty linear, after each mission you get to chat with the cats you rescued by email. Most of these conversations are cute, silly, and just serve as a way to expand all these cats' different personalities a little, but I believe they're all connected by one central theme: giving up on your ambitions and going for safety instead. I don't want to spoil much of the game's actual plot for you since I'd like you to experience it for yourself, but I do want to touch on this subject that I really like, so I'll be quick. As it turns out, Nina Pasadena wasn't always an insurance agent. Before all of this, she was actually a big-time space crime lord herself. However, one day everything went wrong, and she accidentally cloned herself and left her clone behind in wonky space to escape. After that job, Nina abandoned her life of awesome space crime and ended up working for Meow Corp, the company handling all of these ships and offering assurance services you've been dishing out throughout the whole game. Meanwhile, the other Nina, known as Xena, went on to form her own highly popular space pirate crew called the Numb Bunch, with the sole purpose of getting revenge on Nina for abandoning her. So eventually it just sort of creates this like fun back and forth where basically Meow Corp really on purpose just keeps working with Nina and keeps putting Nina on all these ships because then the pirates show up, and having Nina deployed makes money for Meow Corp, so it's sort of an endless little Ouroboros of capitalism and, you know, putting people in dangerous situations sort of deal. From there though, the story turns into a cool little weird 60s, 70s intergalactic chase to find Xena and put an end to her schemes, all while dealing with the fact that she just might actually be the good clone. After all, she's the one that's fully successful with her own empire of devoted fangirling space pirates.
Everyone in my crew is a huge fan. We watch all your weekly video announcements, and we have a discussion group about them afterwards too, and anyway.
Meanwhile, you literally work at an insurance company that can't be bothered to give you shoes to wear. Now, the story is very silly and way more of a cartoon than a serious, deep, space sci-fi Hitman adventure, and you know, this is all just my own little reading, it's all my own opinions on it. I'd love to see anyone else's interpretation and just thoughts, but at the end of the day, it's not a very deep, like, you know, whole Lynchian adventure of the mind situation we're dealing with here. So of course, because of that, the writing might not be for everyone. I haven't looked at many reviews because I didn't want other reviewers to impact the way I felt about the game right after having played it myself, but there is one little passage in a review by Tom Reagan, I hope I'm getting that name correctly, from The Guardian that sort of rubbed me the wrong way. Blendo Games understands that the best immersive sims are inherently cartoony playgrounds, sandboxes where every item is a tool for maleficence. From chucking pepper at a guard and making them sneeze so hard they pass out, to riding a pirate's back and charging them straight into a wall, you certainly couldn't accuse Skin Deep of taking itself too seriously. Unfortunately, I started to wish that the writers took it all more seriously, as freed cuboid cats leap from their rectangular cages with a sparkle and an enthusiastic and I reply to paw-panned emails asking me to find quirky VHS tapes. It dawns on me that I'm playing Deus Ex for Disney adults. While Skin Deep's gags may well be catnip for the right player, the never-ending feline puns and overly zany tone had me cringing, eliciting more grimaces than guffaws. Guffaws. I find this bit kind of sad and unfortunate because 1, well, I'm not a Disney adult, Tom, don't call me that ever again, and 2, because I don't think cringe is a really fair way to look at something like this, or, a fair way to review anything ever. To me, cringe is a sort of secondhand embarrassment you feel purely because you have heard someone else say that it was embarrassing. I would much rather hear someone say that this writing is plain bad than this writing is cringe, because one at least is your own opinions, meanwhile the other is just you letting your thoughts on a piece of media be dictated by someone else's poorly explained opinion. I never really liked people simplifying bad shows like Has Been Hotel, for example, as just cringe. If you truly felt dislike for what you were watching, you would actually bother to explain the source of the embarrassment you feel towards the piece of media you're talking about. Here, in my opinion, Has Been Hotel has terrible character designs for the style of animated show, the plot is riddled with inconsistencies that you are expected to just ignore for the sake of a failed hype and aura moment, and its attempt at dealing with serious subject matters like assault are ridiculously disrespectful. I picked Has Been Hotel for this example because it's pretty notorious for being quote-unquote cringe, and while I agree with its detractors, what I'm trying to say here is that you can be a little bit clearer about what sucks so bad about it instead of autopiloting to an all-encompassing term that keeps being used to spread harmful rhetoric more than anything. If you free yourself from cringe, you will be able to enjoy things better and hate even harder. Tangent on the word cringe aside, Skin Deep's writing is very millennial coded, and that humor very much isn't for everyone, but I don't think that's inherently a bad thing. If anything, I actually really appreciated how honest this made the game feel. I believe that honesty can absolutely uplift any silly concept in an alright experience to a 10 out of 10. Skin Deep's story isn't that deep. It's easy to follow, and its ending is just as goofy as everything else in the game, but it's a true passion project straight out of Blendo Game's heart. You can tell by the sheer amount of detail they bothered to put into writing each one of these notes, these paw-penned emails, and recording all these extra unlockable VHS tapes. Hey, Editing Gazelle here. I should probably also mention that at no point does the game's story really require you to suspend your disbelief beyond what is clearly intended and meant of the player. It doesn't rely on being goofy and silly to fill itself with a bunch of inconsistencies or just weird plot irrelevant stuff that really just messes everything up for the sake of being goofy. I felt like I should add this little thing here because I don't think I really went into why I think the story is actually decent. I just sort of said, oh yeah, it's got it's very honest, which is not enough. Or the fact that a game like this could have easily been made in an engine like Godot, when in fact it was made on id Tech 4, also commonly known as the Doom 3 engine. To me, this makes every cat pun or quirky VHS tape all the more endearing. It all mixes together to make for a game with fun, welcoming, yet pretty innovative imsim mechanics with a sweet cartoony story that ties it all up. I don't want to become an Anthony Fantano of indie games, so I'm not going to be putting a number out of 10 or like stars on my review. I'm just gonna say that it is a great game, you should play it, and I'll end this video on this quote from Tom's article because I actually agree with a lot of what he says, and I think he puts it best when it comes to Skin Deep's place in the immersive sim genre. For £15, this is a colorful, breezy introduction to an infamously inaccessible genre. The end result is an enjoyable, if muddled game. A deceptively deep, immersive sim that may be too silly for genre fans and too low poly to entice newcomers. This isn't the genre's breakout hit then. A slapstick immersive sim using Doom 3's engine was likely always destined to be niche. But if you can stomach Skin Deep's saccharine silliness, there's 10 hours of futuristic feline fun batting its paw in your direction. Also, if you enter a ship from a trash chute, you'll become stinky and all the enemies can smell you. I just felt like you should know that, you know, just in case. You know, it's pretty cool.